Hello, welcome to Raymond Castile's Basement of Horror. Today we're going to review the new Mego Van Helsing figure. Let's take it out of the box. I just got this. I know everyone else has had their Van Helsing figure for a few weeks, so I'm kind of a Johnny-come-lately on this. It's strange. Sometimes I'll get a new toy before anybody else, and then sometimes it's a month later. And when you get them early, everyone wants to know your secret. How did you get it so soon? I ordered it, and it came when it came. And then when it doesn't come early, people are asking, when are you going to review that particular action figure that everyone else is reviewing? When it comes. I can't control how fast it arrives. But finally, I've got it. The Mego Dr. Van Helsing figure. This is the Hammer Studios Peter Cushing Van Helsing. So this is a big deal. That here we are in 2021, we finally have proper licensed Hammer action figures. Not Hammer inspired, not custom, but actual Hammer figures, licensed Hammer Studios action figures. He's got a bit of a bump or something right there on his bubble, I see. Well, I'm happy to have him at all at this point. So here we are, Peter Cushing as Dr. Van Helsing. So let's take a look at him. And I'm impressed with this head sculpt, not just for how good the likeness is, but also how, this will sound weird, how far off the likeness is. And I'll explain that in a second. But I'm impressed by how well they captured Peter Cushing as Van Helsing, and at the same time, how much it does not look like a modern Hot Toys sideshow kind of accurate, precise likeness. So we'll look at the card a little bit more later. And so what I mean is, you look at him, and you know that's Peter Cushing as Van Helsing. It's got not just the details of the likeness of his face, but it has his personality. It has his essence. They captured something about his expression, his stare, his demeanor that looks like Peter Cushing as Van Helsing. But it's actually a very soft sculpt. It's very soft, very doll-like, very toy-like. It's not at all, even by modern Mego standards, it's not at all a detailed, precise, textured kind of a sculpt with hard lines where you can see all the contours and everything. It's not. It doesn't look like a modern toy likeness. It looks like a 1970s toy likeness. So the fact that it's that far removed from what we think of as a modern likeness in a toy sculpt, and yet it still captures Peter Cushing as Van Helsing, I think that's impressive. So they made something that looks like a 1970s Mego or Mego style figure, and it definitely has that quality, and yet it also captures the actor and the character so well. It would be easier to capture the character with more detail. It's easier to lose the character when you're going for this kind of softness. But they gave it this very, very 1970s toy-like appearance instead of the very modern, hyper-detailed style. And yet they still managed to capture the character, not just the likeness, but the essence of the character. And a lot of modern toys get the likeness, but they don't get the essence. It looks like a wax figure, something in a museum. There's an uncanny valley quality to it. It doesn't capture the soul of the actor or the character. It captures the likeness of the character, but it doesn't capture the character. It captures the likeness of the actor, but it doesn't capture the actor. So it's impressive that they made it so retro and so doll-like, and yet it's still Peter Cushing as Van Helsing. And it's not Peter Cushing as Baron Frankenstein. A lot of people, myself included, were worried when we saw a preliminary sculpt of the prototype for the Van Helsing, and it had Baron Frankenstein's sideburns, which are very distinct. There's no mistaking Baron Frankenstein's sideburns, and I can't really see with the naked eye if there's some trace of those sideburns left in the sculpt. I'll have to see on the video later, but to my eyes, I don't see it. I don't see any telltale line where the sideburns used to be, so I don't know if they scrubbed the sideburns from the sculpt or if they resculpted it from scratch. But the prototype head they showed for this had Baron Frankenstein's sideburns. And I'm glad they showed that to us ahead of time so we could give them feedback and tell them, no, that's Baron Frankenstein, that's not Van Helsing. Well, there's a big difference. So this has the proper Van Helsing sideburns. And it has Van Helsing's costume from the 1958 Horror of Dracula, the first appearance of Peter Cushing's Van Helsing. Now, this will sound like a put down, but it's not. When I took this out of the box, before I started shooting this just came today. I took it out to look at it and get some first impressions so I'd have something to say. My first impression was it looks like a Hero of the Revolution doll. In 1976, for the bicentennial, there was a series of dolls, Mego style, Mego knockoff dolls based on the founding fathers and early American historical figures. And this figure reminded me a lot of those. The softness of the sculpt, also the color of the plastic, both the head and the hands. It has a kind of translucent, very light color in the head, and the hands are very light colored. And that's reminded me of the Hero of the Revolution toys. And also the costume, because he has this 19th century costume, has a kind of Hero of the Revolution look. And I used to have a boxed set of Hero of the Revolution dolls, but I don't have them now, so I can't show you what I'm talking about. Take my word for it, that it has that look. And that's not a criticism at all. It's just an observation. I mean, I like the Hero of the Revolution figures. They're very cheap, very cheesy, but very, very 1970s. And another throwback to the kind of 70s rack toy aesthetic is the card, because the card is like a Lincoln International card. It's very, very Lincoln-esque. And I like that. I like that it's a Lincoln-style card, and I do think that's intentional. I don't think that's accidental. I think someone at Mego wanted these to look like Lincoln cards. So you have the character in the bubble, and then to his side you have the environment, the world in which that character lives. So you don't have a picture of the character here. You have the kind of landscape, or in this case a cityscape, where that character would live. With the Dracula, the Christopher Lee Dracula, it had a forest scene. And without the context of the Lincoln figures, you might look at that and say, why would they put trees and like a forest on a Dracula figure? But I got what they were doing. They were going for that Lincoln look. Same thing with the reptile. They had a kind of a jungle, a tropical jungle background, which is not in the movie, the reptile, but they're going for that environment where the monster might live. Okay, so now let us play our game about the back of the card. So, with several recent Mego figures, it's kind of a mystery about what might be on the back of the toy card. What character might be pictured on the back of the toy card. It's not necessarily the character that's depicted by the toy. It might be, it might not be. There have been several recent Mego figures where the character on the back of the card was not the character that the toy depicts. Close, but not exactly the same character. So let's see, play this little guessing game. What character do you think is on the back of this card? Do you think it's Lawrence Van Helsing? Abraham Van Helsing? Abraham Lincoln? Maybe it's this Van Helsing? Or that Van Helsing? Or Van Halen? What do you think is on the back of this card? Let's find out. Who is on the back of this card? It's Lorimer Van Helsing. That's Lorimer. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Lorimer Van Helsing. That's Lawrence Van Helsing from Horror of Dracula. That's Lorimer Van Helsing from the Satanic Rites of Dracula. You notice he's got 20th century clothing and a band-aid on his forehead. So he is the descendant of this character. This is the 19th century Van Helsing, and this is the 20th century descendant, Lorimer. And there's some confusion about the name of Peter Cushing's Van Helsing, because in Brides of Dracula, he has a bag that has initials JVH. So is it Jonathan? We don't know. But in Dracula AD 1972, there's a narrator that calls him Lawrence. And I think also in the Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires, he's called Lawrence. And in Horror of Dracula, he never says his first name. The literary Van Helsing is Abraham Van Helsing. And I believe I tried to verify this, that Edward Van Sloan's Van Helsing in the Bela Lugosi Dracula is also Abraham Van Helsing. At least it seems to be accepted that he's Abraham Van Helsing. I tried to verify, find some record from Universal Studios that verified he is Abraham Van Helsing. I couldn't do that, but everything online calls the Van Sloan character Abraham Van Helsing, like the book character. The movie from a decade or so ago with Hugh Jackman called Van Helsing, that character is Gabriel Van Helsing. So there's a lot of different Van Helsings. And the Peter Cushing Van Helsing in Horror of Dracula, Brides of Dracula, the prologue of Dracula AD 1972, and the Seven Golden Vampires is apparently Lawrence Van Helsing, although there's some confusion with the initials on that bag that he's carrying in Brides. The modern Van Helsing in all but the prologue of Dracula AD 1972 and the film Satanic Rites of Dracula, which is where the still is from, that's Lorimer Van Helsing, the descendant of Lawrence. And I noticed on the Big Bad Toy, what is it? Big Bad Toy Store. That's the name, right? Big Bad Toy Store. I don't know why that doesn't sound right. That there's a shop online, Big Bad Toy Store, and I hope that's the name. I noticed on the page for this figure, they have a character, a product description, and it mentions Lawrence and Lorimer. So I think someone at Mego got the memo, because they showed this card back a few months ago, and people spoke up about it and said that's not the same character. So I think Mego's trying to incorporate that information into their product description. If they sent that to that shop, that online store, and if the store didn't make that up on their own, I'm sure they didn't. It probably came from Mego. I don't know why they have a different character on the back. You would think a picture of this character would be available from Hammer, I would think. But I don't know. Whatever. So that's kind of odd. It's a nice picture of Peter Cushing as one of the Van Helsings. But there are nice images of him from Horror of Dracula. And now Mego's going to do another version of this in a few months that comes with candlestick holders that he can use to make a cross. In Horror of Dracula, he gets 2 candlestick holders and he makes a cross out of them. And that holds back Dracula. So they're going to make a version of this toy that has the candlestick holders in it. And I'm thinking, I would think that on the back of the card, they would have that image from Horror of Dracula with Lawrence Van Helsing holding the candlestick holders. I would think. Or maybe they'll have this picture again. I don't know. We'll see. Now, it's interesting that they're going to do a variant with a different accessory, because this version does have an accessory, and this has caused a little bit of controversy, if you can call it that. It's caused some commentary. It's inspired some commentary online. This little spike, I guess that's supposed to be a stake. That's the only accessory that comes with this figure. And if you look at his hands, he really couldn't hold a full-sized steak. You know, a wooden steak, not a beef steak, a wooden steak. But he can hold that little thing. But that's not a steak. That's like a stiletto. That's a spike. That's about the size of a cigar. It's, if it were a normal sized person, it would be about that big and, that big around. So we'd have a little spike. I mean, if he went after Dracula with that little spike, I think Dracula would hand him his you-know-what. I don't think that would be very effective against Dracula. Can you imagine trying to attack Christopher Lee's Dracula with a little spike like that? I don't think that's going to work. No, so all the Van Helsings, when they use a stake, and he doesn't really use a stake that much. Well, I guess he does. He doesn't use it that much against Dracula. He'll kill other vampires, but I think there's only 2 times in the entire franchise that Van Helsing stakes Dracula, or maybe it's not even Van Helsing. Maybe someone else stakes Dracula. Let me think here. Yeah, I don't. There's not a lot of Van Helsing staking Dracula in the Hammer Dracula series. But when Van Helsing uses a stake, it's like you would expect. It's like so big and like this tall, has a spike. It's a stake, a wooden stake. And that's what you need to pound into a vampire's heart, whether it's Dracula or some other vampire. So that little spike, I guess you could kind of tap it. I don't know. I don't think it's going to kill the vampire. So why did they include that? I guess they figured it's better than nothing, but I can understand that he couldn't, with those hands, hold a stake, a big, proper size stake. How is he going to hold the candlestick holders? I don't know. Maybe that version will have different hands. We'll see. Maybe there'll be something about the way the candlestick holders are molded, where there will be a place where they can fit into his hands. But I would have this adds no value to the figure. It becomes, unfortunately, it gives people the opportunity to criticize the figure, and why include something that could only invite criticism. There's nothing. It doesn't add anything to the figure to put that little spike in there. Could have given him a crucifix. I can understand why maybe they wouldn't want to have any religious symbolism, but it's for ages 17 and over. So I think, the older horror fans can handle some religious symbolism in a Van Helsing toy. They could have given him a little crucifix. They could have given him a little medical bag, because he's a doctor, and he has a little. Well, as I said, in Brides of Dracula has JVH initials on it, but he has a bag. Could have given him a journal, like Jonathan Harker's journal. Sometimes he has a pistol. So, there's other things they could have given him, some, like a garlic wreath, whatever, something else. But they gave him that little spike. So I think that's an ill-advised accessory. It doesn't ruin the toy by any means, but it doesn't accentuate it. It doesn't add anything to it. His costume looks nice. It is a simple costume, but it's effective. It's simple, but it works. It looks like it should. All in all, I think this captures the character very nicely, and it captures Peter Cushing very nicely. And it does it in a retro Mego 1970s style. If Mego had made Van Helsing in the 1970s, Peter Cushing Van Helsing, it might have looked like this. Certainly if another Mego style company, like Azrak Hamway or whatever. You take your pick, any of the other 70s companies that made Mego style figures. If someone else had made a Van Helsing, I'm sure it would look like that. It's just a tad softer than I think what Mego was doing in the 70s. But I don't know. I look at it different directions. It's not that soft. It is just the right touch of like childlike quality, but you can see like the bags under his eyes and the lines in his cheek, and it's got detail. But I'm glad it doesn't have like an overdone paint with like a wash or something. It's just simple and doll-like with tan colored, almost translucent plastic, and just painting the eyes, painting the eyebrows, painting the hair. That's it. And that's good. I like that. All right, so now I'm going to step away for a moment because I want to get the Christopher Lee Dracula to show him side by side with this. And I'm back. I had to step away for a minute to get Dracula. So here we are. All right. Now, here's Dracula and Van Helsing. And this is a site that I don't think very many horror fans or monster toy collectors ever thought they'd see. Licensed Mego style Christopher Lee Count Dracula Hammer Count Dracula and Peter Cushing Hammer Dr. Van Helsing. This was a long time coming. You would have thought we would have got these in the 1970s, but we did not. You would have thought we would have gotten these maybe in the late 90s, early 2000s, like from Sideshow or something like that. But nope. Only now, in 2021, are we finally getting these. And these characters are from a 1958 movie. And this is the first time they've been depicted as licensed, articulated action figures. Well, it's better late than never. I would have loved to have these as a kid, even though I think I've told the story before. I didn't like the Mego Mad Monsters because I thought they were Hammer. And I wanted Universal monsters, so I wanted the Azrak Hamway monsters because those were Universal. And I didn't want the Mego Mad Monsters because I thought they were Hammer. They do have a Hammer kind of a look when you think about it. The Mad Monsters, all of them have a sort of Hammer-esque look. I don't know that that was intentional, probably not, but they do look a little on the Hammer side. But that was, I was just starting to play with action figures at that point. A few years later, by the time you got like the Lincolns and Tomland figures, by the end of the 70s, I was as into Hammer as anything else. So, because by then I'd seen several Hammer movies. I hadn't seen that many when the Mad Monsters came out. I was raised on Universal monsters, so I had a low opinion of anything that wasn't Universal. By the end of the 70s, though, all bets were off. I was into Dracula versus Frankenstein or Frankenstein Conquers the World, or who knows what, just all kinds of different wacky versions of those characters. So I was no longer a universal purist by the end of the 70s. So by then I would have loved to have had these, and I would have played the heck out of these. Christopher Lee Dracula and Peter Cushing Van Helsing. So it's quite... Seeing them together, it's more impressive than looking at them individually. It's one thing to look at each one, they're cool on their own, but when you put them together, then you kind of feel the weight of what this means. To finally have these toys. Licensed, official, mass-produced, costumed, articulated 8-inch Mego action figures of Hammer Dracula and Hammer Van Helsing. So I hope that Mego continues to push this line. I know that they've got the Woman in Black and the candlestick holder Van Helsing and the Curse of Frankenstein creature, the Christopher Lee creature. Those are confirmed, and they had the head sculpt for Baron Frankenstein, so I'm assuming they're going to make Baron Frankenstein at some point. And I don't know of any confirmation of anything else beyond that. I mean, I'm assuming they're going to continue with the line, but those are the only figures that have been confirmed. So far, we've got these two and the reptile. We've got 3 so far that have actually come out. I hope, if they continue with the 14-inch line, I hope they do 14-inch Hammer. I mean, that would be great, a 14-inch Christopher Lee Dracula, particularly. That'd be wonderful. So I would like to... I'm much more interested in 14-inch Hammer monsters than I am the 14-inch Universal monsters. And a big reason is because the 14-inch Universal monsters, other than Frankenstein, are probably all going to be blown-up versions of the old MC sculpts, like the creature and the Dracula have been. So if they do Mummy and Wolfman 14 inches, I'm sure they'll just take the MC heads and blow them up. But they can't do that with Hammer. So the Hammer figures would be, in 14 inches, would be all original. And I just think, particularly the Christopher Lee characters, because he's so tall and imposing, I think Christopher Lee monsters would look really impressive in that larger scale. So I'd like to see that. You'll be hearing in the days and weeks to come about Bleak Sunday, October 24, 2021, Bleak Sunday. And I'll upload a video just about Bleak Sunday, but you're going to hear me mentioning that more and more. And I'll tell you what that is very soon, what you're going to expect on Bleak Sunday, October 24. Until next time, subscribe, like this video, and keep a lookout for the Halloween giveaway. I already shot that video. I don't know if it would upload before or after this, but keep a lookout for the annual Halloween giveaway video. If you see that, watch that video, because you can win a free monster toy. Thanks for watching. Have a happy October and a happy Halloween season.